Hi, my name is Mark, welcome to Gamers Web. In this video I'm going to assemble the first part of my Imperial fleet from Warcradle Studios, Dystopian Wars. Let's check it out. Hi there, welcome back. As I said in the intro, this video will be me starting my Imperial fleet for Dystopian Wars from Warcradle Studios. Going to do this step by step with easy enough to follow guides on how we do it and how we get into the game. So let's crack on. Okay, so the first thing that you need to do is choose a faction. I have gone for the Imperiums, which is the Germans in the game. My friend Roland, he's going to be going for Commonwealth, which are the Russians. So if you go to the website dystopianwars.com or www.dystopianwars.com, you find on the homepage all these different bits of information about the game, about the rules, about the factions, and where you can buy stuff. And you can buy directly from Wayland Games, who are the manufacturers because they're the parent company of Warcradle Studios. Okay, so to find out more about the faction, we need to click on the factions button, and here we have our various factions. We've got the Union, which is America. We've got the Enlightened, which is a hashtag group of scientists. We've got the Commonwealth, which are the Russians, the Imperium, which are the Germans, the Alliance, which is France, Spain and Italy, Crown, which is Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and then I think Crown also includes Australia as well. Then we've got Empire, which is Japan, China and other Asian countries, and then we've got the Sultanate, which is the Middle Eastern regions of the world in this dystopian world, which is an alternate take on the late 1900s. Okay, so the faction that I'm going for is the Imperium, and the blurb says, Imperium, the preeminent power in the Central Europe, the Imperium is a mighty colossus that spans the continent from shores of the Baltic to the warmer climes of the Adriatic. From its capital in Berlin, the network of industry, rail and military might is earnest for the good of its citizens. The Kaiser and his supporters, the enigmatic and powerful Teutonic Knights, are surrounded by enemies, but are confident in their ability to marshal their forces and destroy utterly those who would threaten their glorious realm. Let them come and break their strength upon the bulwark of civilization. The Imperial shall not go shrinking into the darkness like some thief in the night. Blood and iron. Okay, so that's just a little tiny intro on the Imperium themselves, which is based quite heavily on the German Prussian Empire of the 17 and 1800s. Sorry, 18 and 1900s. On this page here, on the factions, you can download all the unit cards for all your vessels and things. You can view the Orbat, which is the orders of battle, which gives you all the details for your weapons and other stuff like that. And then we have more info here, which then gives us our brief on the Imperium itself in a PDF format. And it's like 11 pages long. Not very much artwork, it's all text, but that gives you an overview of what the Imperium is. Okay, and as I pointed out in my review of the Konig Battlefleet, if you do come to the factions and you click on your faction, if you go back, it automatically defaults to Union, so remember that. Okay, so what we need to do now to actually get the best of it, I've got the Konig Battlefleet. I'm going to implement that into my army, so my battle force. So what I'm going to do is go to guides here, and then we have our assembler guides, and we have the Enterprise frontline, Japanese frontline, Crown support. If we just go down, we get the Konig. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to download that and then print it out, and that'll give me my assembler guides. Now I've already downloaded it and printed it out, and this is what it looks like when it's downloaded. So we'll have a quick look at this. Okay, so this is the assembly sheet. It's quite straightforward. There's a couple of little bits that you might find a bit tricky if you're new to modelling. because the pieces are quite small, but it's pretty self-explanatory, and it tells you where you find all the parts for all of the ships. Because some of the sprues are on the squadron support sprue or the frontline sprue, and that's what generators you can and you cannot use, so you can't use that one, and things like that. Quite simple and straightforward to use. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to go over to the table and we're going to start assembling the fleet, and then we'll get on to painting it, and then go from there and see how we go. Hopefully Roland should be doing his Commonwealth fleet at the same time, so we should get a pretty diverse and interesting videos. So I shall catch you in a moment. Okay, so let's get started. Right, I've printed out the instructions for the Konig fleet. It's 7 pages long, quite easy to follow, hopefully, and we'll get on with it. Okay, so what I'm going to use is, because the main ship, the actual Konig itself, is resin, regular cement won't work with it. You need to use super glue. So I have some React medium super glue. I also have some Tamiya cement, which is for the plastic parts. I've got a Swan & Morton scalpel with a fresh blade. I've got an emery board, which is just a cheap thing for doing your nails with. These are ideal for modelling with, but you've got to be careful that you don't take too much of the plastic off. And I've got a pair of side snips, which came with my printer. Okay, and then of course we've got the instructions and our box. Right, so let's get into it and see what we're going to do. I'm going to start off with the Konig itself, or the Konig, and that's going to be my first ship to assemble. In the box we have our pieces. Now I've already done my unboxing of this and my review, so this is just basically extra gravy, and we should be okay, hopefully. Right, so all the pieces are quite cleaned up. I need to snip off all the parts of the tree that the Konig resin parts come with. So to do so, just simply get your snippers, use the flat part, flush as possible you can to the model, and then just gently cut. It's not too bad, it's not left too much of a mark on the bottom, and I can quite easily sand that down, and then just do the same for all the pieces, and we'll be done and dusted. So it's just a question of trying to angle it right so the camera doesn't get in the way. And then this is quite an easy ship to do because this is only a few pieces, whereas the a couple of the other ships are a little bit more because they've got much more pieces. Now you could snap these off, but I wouldn't recommend it because like all resin kits, they're going to be quite fragile. Okay, and that appears to be alright. There's a couple of little tiny burrs on the resin. This can just be disposed of. We'll dispose of it properly. Don't just throw it in the bin because it's resin. It can be toxic, and try and keep them away from pets and small children as well. Alright, so as I said, the actual resin kit won't assemble using regular glue. You need to use super glue. So we look at our instructions and it tells us where we find the parts. So parts 17, 18, 19, 20 and 29 can be found on the Imperium frontline sprue. Now when we look at the sprues themselves have a name on the top of them. If the camera will pick it up, if I can get to the right. Okie dokie. Okay, so on this one, on the top there, it says support. Is that one? No, it's not. That says Imperium cruisers and frigates, and this one says Dum, 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 dum. Squadron support. Right, so this one says squadron support at the top there. Sorry, I picked the wrong sprue up. And this one is the cruisers and frigates. So some of the parts aren't on this, they're in the other box set, which I do have. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to very quickly check all these parts are alright. I'm going to check everything's okay. It all looks alright. And I'm going to dry fit some of the pieces on and just see that they fit in quite flush with the resin, and they go in the right way around as well. Yep, they look like they're going to go in perfectly, not a problem. So that's how my dry fit's going to look when it's glued in place. Now you don't need to use too much glue, because resin does tend to stick quite well with super glue, and this is a fresh bottle of super glue, so I'm just going to open this up with my snips and then we'll go from there. One way you could do this is instead of actually just pouring it straight onto the model, put it into a small saucer or something, and then use the back of a brush or a piece of dowel and use that against the actual resin itself. But for convenience sake, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just use what I've got here in front of me. Okay, so I'm going to file this down. Now the easiest way to do this, to get it so it fits quite nicely, is instead of actually using the file, move your hand with the actual model and you can actually feel it going flat. So if you actually move the piece rather than the actual file itself, and that was quite well done anyway. It didn't need very much work on it, and the same with this one. It's just going to need a couple of passes on it, like that, and as you can see it's totally flat. And it doesn't matter which way you put these on, I think. Yes, it does. Right, they've both got a Maltese cross on the side of them, and the Maltese cross goes on the outside of the vessel. So what I'm going to do is just going to put a wee drop of super glue onto one of them, like that, and then this is going to go into the recess on the ship itself, like this. I'm going to put that one there because that one is for that, and it just clicks into place. And then I'm going to do the same on the other one. I'm just going to put a wee drop of super glue on the vessel itself so you can see. Just a little drop more should be alright. You don't really need too much, because if you put too much on it will spill everywhere and you'll end up getting super glue residue all over your kit, and then it just flicks into place like that. Okay, so we're now looking a little bit more like a ship, which is brilliant. So just leave that to one side to dry out for a moment. Now we have our main assembly part for the ship. This is the harder part. It's not actually difficult, it's just a little bit tricky if you've not done this kind of thing before. Okay, so our instruction manual tells us that this piece here, which is the large resin Konig tower type thing, glues into these two pieces here, and they glue in a specific way. So they glue in with the little locator pegs on the bottom there, and as you can see there's a recess there and a lug recess there, and on the top of this there is, if I can get it the right way around, there is a little lug there and there's a little nipple there, and they just go in like that into the model, and they should just go in quite well, hopefully. Yep, so that goes in like that. Okay, just double check. Yep. So the crane part seems to be at the front with the parts at the back. So again, I'm just going to pop a little bit of super glue onto this, then run it down, then put this into the recess, and I put a little bit of super glue into the recess here as well. There we go. Perhaps too much super glue there, but we'll be alright. Okay, so get this the right way around. It's not easy to do looking at the camera and trying to judge if I'm getting it right or not, but and I'm not. I've got it the wrong way around because I picked the wrong one up. Right, okie dokie. So no, I had the right one in the first place. So that one goes in like that, and this glues into there like that. And then on the other side we do the same thing. Now whenever you're using things like super glue or scalpels or cutting tools, always mind to be careful. I know it's like teaching your grandmother to suck eggs type thing, but remember that these things are actually quite sharp and quite dangerous. Okay, so final one goes in like this, and for some reason my cats are going nuts and I don't know why, and that just clicks into place eventually. Okie dokie. Right, so what we're going to do now, we've got that in place. I'm just going to snap it into place because it's not sitting correctly. And there we go, like that. Now it's in. I'm just going to... Oh! Okay. And now I'm just going to leave this to dry for a few moments before I move on to the next step. Now, I just mentioned about being careful with these things. Well, there is a reason why I say that, because this piece is now stuck all over my fingers because I put too much super glue on it. So I'm just going to pause the camera and clean this up, and then I'll be right back. Okay, so that seems to be all right now on both sides. Okay, so this will now fit into the recess on the actual ship itself. Now, the reason why I'm doing all the resin parts first is that way I leave the plastic until the last part, then I don't lose anything, because I do have a habit of snipping things off, putting it down and wondering where on earth I've put it, but that's just me. Okay, so this glues into the main of the body of the hull, and it glues in this manner. You've got the two recesses at the back there, and these two lugs just fit in like that, and then that just glues into place there like that. So quite simple. So what I'm going to do is just going to pop some super glue on the bottom of this rather than into the recesses, because I put too much super glue. This is brand new, it's coming out quite quickly, and again, I'm not very used to actually building things on a camera. I don't do it very often, for an obvious reason, because I'm not very good at it. Okay, so there should be enough there to go in, and I'm just going to line it up with the two lugs and the two recesses, and just pop that in like that, and hopefully that should stick in place. And it seems to be alright, and it's beginning to look a lot more like a vessel already. So that's all the resin parts done of the ship. Now we've got to locate our other parts of our vessel. So this is quite easy to do. We have on the support squadrons sprue, we have our pieces, which will be where are we, 16, 21, 34, 35, 36, 37. Okay, so all the pieces are numbered on each sprue, and as I say, we actually have the thing there that says support sprue, so you know which sprue is which. And now it's a question of getting your clippers, using the flat edge again, and putting the flat edge as close to possible to the little spurs that are holding onto the piece that you need to cut off. In this case, I'm doing the main trolley of the gun, and also when you're cutting, make sure you don't cut too much too close to the actual model itself, because you'll end up either cutting into the model kit or you'll lose a piece. Now, I'm not going to use super glue for this section because I don't need it at the moment, so I'm going to put my lid back on the super glue and leave that to one side. I'm now going to use my polystyrene cement, but I will be using super glue to actually glue this in place. So the instructions say that this piece here is goes in one particular direction, so I need to find the right direction for it, and that would be that way up, I would imagine, and then this goes no, actually the wrong way around, that way, like that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pause again for a second, and I'm going to look at the actual picture of the Konig and see if I'm making a mistake. In fact, I'm not going to pause, I'm just going to look at the picture, so I make sure that the gun's right. Yeah, so it goes that way up, like that, with the little holes at the top, rather than that way up with the rails, because the rails sit onto the actual recess. Okay, so it's always worthwhile just double checking, and it goes as far back as possible against these two little lugs at the bottom. So this Tamiya cement has got a little brush in it, and all you need is a little tiny bit. Put that on, and then just put it on one side, don't put it on both sides because you'll end up with too much on, and then just put this so it's right at the very back, and we're going to leave that to dry. And that shouldn't take very much long, really, because it's only a small piece. Now, if you do find that you're having problems with the glue drying, because sometimes polystyrene cement doesn't like to work with certain kits, kits like Mantic, the plastic kits, they don't like some kinds of polystyrene cements, so I normally use super glue on them. So we just leave that piece to dry, and we'll move on to the next piece, which again is off this sprue. So we're looking for piece 34 and 35, which are weapons. So 34, 29 isn't on this ship, no, 29 is on the other one, so we're looking for pieces 34 and 37. Right, so that's 37, and that's one. So these pieces can be very fiddly, so if you want to use tweezers, that's quite acceptable to use tweezers. And piece 34. And it's always a good idea to work over something that's white, so if you do drop them, you can hopefully see where they've gone. And these pieces just glue into those recesses there. Now, because this is resin, as we mentioned before, we won't be able to use a regular polystyrene cement on this, so we'll have to use super glue. So all it is a question of is taking the lid off the super glue, checking that there's no real burrs on the bottom of the actual thing itself that are going to cause in the way. That's not too bad. Right, and then just put a drop of super glue into the recess. It's coming out, still coming out quite fast because it's brand new, like that. And then we just get the guns and put the guns. It doesn't matter which one you put on which side because they're identical, and they just go on to our vessel like this, and hopefully they should stick in place. Now you can use your scalpel to position them as long as you're fast, because cyanoacrylate super glue does dry extremely quickly, which is why we tend to use it. And if you find that the super glue is not drying fast enough, quite difficult to pick this up because it's a very small piece and it's slipping around in my fingers. You can always use an accelerator. I tend to use super glue Zap or Zap It, which is an accelerant which sends out a chemical onto your kit that's made of, I'm not exactly sure what the chemical is, but there's it reacts with the moisture component in the superglue, because superglue works by absorbing moisture, and that's how it forms the molecular bond, which is why it sticks to your fingers so easily, because you've got a lot of moisture in your fingers. Okay, so we're almost done. This piece is now dry, I think. Yep, so this piece is going to go in, and again, because it's made out of plastic, we're going to have to use super glue. So I'm just going to use a wee drop of super glue on the rails. It's pointless putting it on the bottom, because that part's not really going to sit in very well, I don't think. And that goes as far up as possible. So there we go. Okay, so that's the Konig almost finished now. We need to get piece 29, which is taken from the other sprue, and is this piece here, and that's one of the generators, I think. And again, I'm just going to snip the piece off, and this is our piece, and this goes into the, like that. Now, because it's the way it's designed, it doesn't matter which way around you go, because it is just one shape. Right, it's but you've got to make sure that the nipple is pointing downwards and it sits in a little recess. Now, our next piece is pieces 17 and 18. They are found on this sprue, I think. Are they? That's 21, 22, 17 and 18. There we go. So we've got piece 17 and piece 18. So we just cut those off from the sprue. And then that was piece 18, so this is piece 17. And again, we will go back to our polycement. I'm going to leave the super glue for a moment because I don't need it. Get the polycement, and this then goes together like this. So it only goes in one way. Just put a wee drop of the glue in, and then you can see which way it goes because it'll only go one way around. Alright, I've got two of the same sides. I've got 17 and 18 instead of 17 and 19 or 18 and 19. So I'll just get another one of those off if I can find where the other one is. There we go. Okay, so just going to glue this into place like that, and then that is the end of that. That goes in quite easily, and there's a couple of little mold lines on this. You could use a mold scraping tool, but I prefer to use the back of the scalpel, especially because this is a fresh blade. It's quite sharp, and again, all I'm doing is gently scraping towards myself, but being mindful of my fingers because I don't want to cut myself. Okay, and if we look at our image of the Konig itself, does it show us? Yes, it's got generators on it. Okay, so we have on the instructions on this part here, it's 17 and 18, and then we have place 30 to 34. These parts go onto this. They're the generators for the vessel itself, with the exception of that one, because that one is the one we've just used there. So we have pieces 30 to 34, and you can choose which one you want to put on. So I'm just going to choose the first two that I come across, I think, and they're on this. I'm going to use piece 33. Which I'll put on the one side, and then I will use piece 30. It doesn't really matter which ones I use, and it's just the ones that I think will look nicest. And they do have various effects in the game. There's different kinds of generators. You've got generators that can generate smoke, generators that can generate a fog that makes it difficult for other vessels to see them. Right, so this is the front, so that's going to go towards the fore of the ship. So I will then just put a little bit of glue on that and a little bit of glue on that, and then again these have a nipple on the bottom, and that just pops into the recess. And it doesn't really matter which way you put them on, it's entirely personal preference, and it will allow for customization of your vessels if you have more than one Konig in your fleet. Okay, so that leaves us with one piece left over that I took off by mistake, but I will put that onto the next one. That's the good thing about not putting the glue on both sides. You just put the glue on one side. It makes it a lot easier in case you do make a mistake and you can't mess up. One piece will dry, and you don't really want that to happen. Okay, this just fits into the back there, like that. Now you could, in theory, leave these off until you're ready to paint them, but I'm just going to glue this in place so I don't actually lose it. And again, I'll just put the glue quite sparingly on the raised lips on this. And what I might try and do is actually transfer this glue into a container. So sorry about the noise. That's the there's a storm outside, and that's the bin bin. Okay, so that just glues into place, and there is our flagship Konig, all built and assembled in 25 minutes, which is probably too long for something so simple, but having to constantly explain what I'm doing, then stopping and starting, I could probably get it done in like 6 or 7 minutes if I wasn't doing so. Okay, so I'm just going to pause the video a moment. I'm going to move this to one side, and then I'm going to set up for another ship. Okay, so the next vessel we've got is our Ferdinand, which is a cruiser, and this gives us a breakdown of what parts we need. Now this is all done in plastic, so I don't need the super glue. I'm just going to move that to one side, so I'll put it underneath my light, and I'm just going to move the Konig to one side as well, so I don't knock it over or spill anything on it. So most of the pieces on this are found on the support squadron screw, which we've just talked about, and I need the main deck, which is piece 3. Again, I'm being as careful as I can not to actually cut into the plastic of the vessel itself, or the deck part, and just keeping the sprue cutters, side cutters, as close as possible. And then if we actually look, there's 2 tiny burrs there, so what I'm going to do again is I'm just going to move this on the actual emery board, and one more there to make them nice and flat and flush. Okay, so that piece is done. Now obviously, because that piece is not going to be seen, you don't have to do this, but I'm doing it so it actually fits in better and doesn't cause me any problems going forward. So we have pieces 1 and 2, which go with piece 3. Kind of natural, really, isn't it? And piece 1. Now there's some quite small components on this kit, but if you've ever assembled any of the kits from Atomic Mass games, such as the Naval Crisis Protocol models. The models are absolutely brilliant, but some of the pieces are so small. Okay, so I'm just going to do the same thing again and make sure it's all flush, and it is. And the same on this one. Now I'm going to try and do something which we call dry fitting, which we've just done previously, but I don't know if these pieces will actually fit on the top of the vessel, or they actually go in after the hull's been put in place. So that's why I'm going to dry fit them. But it does look like they go in after the hull's been put in place. So these are the guns for the side batteries for the Ferdinand. And again, just going to cut those out. And try and sit a bit closer to the camera without knocking the camera over. Okay, so dry fitting is done like this. We basically look to see where we go on our instructions, and our instructions tell us that this part goes this part goes into there, and that part goes into there. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to remove the prow of the vessel, because I've got a feeling from years of doing model kits that it'll be easier for myself if I actually glue this in and then work around this part, because this part will give me something to hold on to. Just cut those two lugs off like that and like that, and then I'm just going to quickly clean this part up. Should be okay. And then I'm also going to cut out the stern of the ship as well, if I can find where the piece is. It should be on this one. There it is. So that's the stern of the ship. Okay, so looking at our instructions, the long part of the deck goes to the back, which means that the short part obviously must go to the front. So that goes in and should just hopefully fit in. Oh, I got it the wrong way around. Fit in like that, and it just actually fits in snugly like that. So what I'm going to do, I don't need to dry test this now, because I know that the rest of it will go together quite easily. So I'm just going to put some polystyrene cement on this part like that, and I think I put a bit too much on there again. Yep, that'll be all right, like that, and it goes in. So it's got to be kind of flush, but don't worry too much, because we're going to straighten that up with the port and starboard sides of the vessel, and they will only go in one direction, which is with the three extruded parts sitting towards the front. So that's going to be the port, and the other one's going to be the starboard. So what we do is we'll just sort that out now, and all it is a little bit of glue dribbled in, and then this put into place. Now the hard part here is trying to do this with keeping it in a shot of the camera. So because this is quite a tricky bit to do, I'm going to actually do this off camera, because it's quite tricky to do and get in the right place. So I'll be back in 1 second. Okay, so that was too tricky to do on the camera because of the position that I'm sitting in, and having to try to keep this thing in focus. So I just done it off camera, and it's kind of dried now. So the next part to do on this is the guns. So I need to put in the guns on the actual vessel itself. I've done the port and starboard hull parts, and I've also put the aft part on. Once you put that in place, whilst these two parts are still quite tacky, you can actually straighten everything up more or less. Still quite tacky because it's only just been done. So it doesn't matter which way you put these on. It does say that they go in a specific direction, but because of the way they're designed, you should be able to put them on either side because they're just one piece. Obviously you've got to make it sure that the guns are pointing outwards, and there is some little recesses in the ship that these point into. So I suppose it really does matter which way you put them on. They just fit in. And if I can just get it in. Another good reason why you shouldn't really take parts off the sprue before you're ready for them is if you take a part off a sprue that's a small part, you might forget what the number was, and if you forget what the number was, well, that opens up a whole host of problems at times. As I was saying about the Marvel Crisis Protocol kits, the kits are lovely. I've done 40 or so of them out of the 70 or 80 that are available, but there are some pieces that are so fiddly that they are absolute nightmares, especially if you've got vision issues like myself. Okay, so they just click into place like that, and our vessel's almost complete. So our final part on the Ferdinand is to get to the next page and put on our weapons and stuff. Okay, so now the piece that we had left over from the Konig, I did glue prior to starting this video onto its mate. That piece just goes at the front, so that piece is going to be quite simple to put together, and that just goes with a bit of glue on the bottom, and that goes on the front, because that is where our forward batteries are going to be. Then we get our next part, which is going to be pieces 13 and 14 and 12, which are from the squadron sprue, I think. Is it the squadron sprue? Let me just double check. Imperial cruisers and frigates. That's the one anyway, so it's those two pieces. So it's a pieces 14 and well done. Have I got the right ones? No, I haven't. It's these ones here. Yep. Right, so from the squadron sprue, so it's this one. 13 and 14. And I'm just going to very quickly when you're using your snippers, you may find that you have to fiddle around with your snippers to get them flush. You might have to re-angle them, and sometimes things can get stuck on. Just turn the snippers upside down, or turn the sprue upside down. I know it sounds like common sense, and it is really, but you'd be surprised how many people don't think of that. I'll just turn the sprue around, and I can get to these ones here, like this. Okay, so again, here's we have a piece of burr plastic. Now I'm just going to pull that off with my fingers so it's off completely, and then I can just use the knife to sort that out. But I'm going to use the edge of the emery, and I'm actually going to just smooth it down slightly because there's a little lug on there. I don't know if that's going to affect anything. Right, so these two pieces go in to the hull, and then we're almost finished with this vessel. Just go and give them a quick clean. Yep, that should be alright. And then once again, these go together. And they make a massive battery for your Konig tower that's on tracks. And there's little lugs that should line up. There we go, like that. So the lugs line up and we just leave that there for the moment. Now I do notice that I do have a little burr of plastic on the back here. Now I'm just going to do this whilst it's still in my hand, and I'm going to end up having to use the back of the knife because it's not coming off. So just very gently like that. Now obviously once it's painted it won't really show too much, hopefully, but we'll get to that when we come to actually painting the model. Okay, so we need piece 12, which is the Konig tower, and is this piece here, I think. Yep, that's piece 12. Again, because I've got vision issues, I have to double check and triple check sometimes to make sure that I get the right pieces, because the print on the actual plastic sprues is very, very small. As you can imagine, it's like about 0.5 or something like that. Okay, so put some glue on, and then the Konig tower only goes in one direction. Just follow the shape of the kit, and that just goes on to the top there and gives us our command deck. And then we have a choice of guns for that. We have 17 to 20, and we also have 17, 18 and 25. Oh sorry, we have piece 17 from this sprue. Is it the other sprue? It's the other sprue, because that's the one with the weapons on. Yeah, so piece 17 from this sprue and piece 20. 26, 27, 28. Right, so we'll put the guns on the front first. And these are our two big ships that are almost done. Now these ships are quite big for the range for Dystopian Wars. They're not the biggest. We do have things like the Ice Maiden, which is a massive ship. Now what you could do in theory, if you were so inclined, is pop magnets in the bottom and then snip off the bottom there and put a magnet on it, so you've got magnetised guns, so you can just turn them around. I don't want to do that because it's too much faffing around. I've got magnets, but I don't want to be messing about with magnets. So I'm just going to put the guns on, and I'm just going to have them facing forward on this vessel. I may actually do some of the vessels so they're facing to the port or to the starboard, but this one I'm just going to put them on like that. And so they're slightly facing forward at an angle. If I've got both guns facing in the same direction, it gives it a bit of a more nice silhouette, I suppose. And then finally we need to put our gun on the top, which is piece 17, which is these pieces here that I didn't actually think were guns. Yes, they're a gun battery. I was looking at the wrong direction. Okay, so this piece goes onto here, and this is a gun turret with what looks like, you know, huge 70-pound guns. If you're looking at the wrong angle, it doesn't look like a gun. And then finally, our last piece is we're just going to pop some glue on the bottom and then put the Konig tower in place like that. And there we go. And I have missed out the actual smokestacks, which I'm now going to rectify by gluing together and putting those on. So the smokestacks are 10, 11, Right, so just a small drop of glue onto these, and they only go together one way. If I can just get it in the right place. So when you glue them on, you will have an overhang at the bottom. The overhang goes onto the hull itself of the vessel. Just glue both of those, and that should be our Ferdinand finished. And as I was saying about these being large vessels, they're not as large as the Enterprise or the Britannia or the Ice Maiden. They're very, very big models. In fact, the Ice Maiden's probably about twice the length of the Konig. Okay, so we've got those in place. Now all we need to do is glue them in the relevant sections on the hull. And to do so, I'm just going to make sure I get them the right way around and glue them in place. And all you do is put the glue on the side that's exposed and then put that against the hull in the right position. So one's port, one's starboard, or left and right. So you and me. Like that. And they just fit in quite neatly at the back. I may have to put a bit more glue on that because it's not sticking down very well. And as I get older, I find it more and more difficult to make plastic kits, which is one of the reasons why I do so much 3D printing, because the parts are a lot bigger, or there's a lot more of them. Sorry, not a lot more of them, a lot less of them for me to worry about. Okay, so right, so that's our Konig and our Ferdinand assembled. So 2 down and another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to go. Okay, so I'm just going to pause for a moment and I'm going to reset things up and tidy the table up a little bit, and then I'll come right back. Okay, tidy up a little bit, moved some of the sprues out of the way, and I've taken all the pieces off the sprues completely and cleaned them up for the most part, apart from this one, which I'm just going to do now. There we go. Okay, so for the Augustus, it's more or less the same assembly as we just done with the Ferdinand, as we have our port and starboard gun batteries, and then the steam stacks at the back. What I've done to actually save some time is I've done it as a sub-assembly. So I've already assembled one half. So I've got the gun battery and the steam stack on one side. I'm going to do the same on the other one now. I've assembled the steam stacks. So it's just a question of now mirroring that up by putting a little bit of glue in place. And I'm going to go from back to front instead of front to back. And I'm going to put the steam stack in place. And then I'm just going to put in the gun battery like this. So the gun battery just flits in place. Now, when you've made a few kits, because obviously I'm doing this with the idea of someone who's never actually built model kits before, don't be worried about them. They're not that difficult to do. It's easier to do things in sub-assemblies than it is to do everything in one go sometimes. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to get the last couple of pieces off the sprue, because I realise that I haven't got the pro of the ship ready to put on. And this is being a pain because it doesn't want to come off the sprue itself. There we go. That's on quite firmly. So I'm going to have to tidy that up a little bit because it's left quite nasty burn marks on the bottom. Okay, that should be alright. And I am now going to get my parts and just glue them in place. They should now fit in place perfectly. But I'm going to pause because this part is tricky to do on the cam. Okay, as you can see, I've assembled the entire thing. I've got a wee bit of a gap at the back here because I dropped the kit itself onto the table whilst I was assembling it like an idiot, and it's left with a little bit of a gap and it's misaligned, but because it's such a small scale, that's not really going to be that noticeable, so I'm not too worried about that. And battleships have open structures on them anyway, so that's just part and parcel of the hobby and doing things in a rush, especially when you're doing them in a way you've not done before. Okay, so I've just assembled the Konig tower. What I'm going to do now is turn my sheet over to the next one, and this part glues in here like that between the two smokestacks, and the little gap at the back is going to be covered by the gantry at the bottom here. So all that fuss for nothing. That's not really fuss, is it? Okay, okay. Alright, so Dystopian Wars is a really cool game. I was lucky enough to be involved with Spartan Games before they went bust. Well, they didn't go bust, before Neil retired, I should say. And did quite a lot of play testing and working with the guys up here in Edinburgh, mainly Derek Sinclair, who was one of the chief runners and on the game, as well as one of my closest friends, Kenny Kirkpatrick, who did a lot of influence on Sword and Steel, not Sword and Steel, Sound of Steel, I think it's Steel Thunder. I can't remember, one of the supplements for Dystopian Wars Kenny did a lot of work on. Okay, and of course Derek was the lead writer, along with Neil Forsyth. Okay, so I'm just going to pop the guns on. These go, these big gun batteries, like big Bertha style gun batteries, they go right at the front, like that, one on either side. And trying to marry them up. There we go, they marry up quite well. And then finally we have a turret that goes on the top, the piece that goes on the top, which is the Konig tower, which I think is this piece. Piece 23. Piece 23. I almost put the wrong piece on then, because it's a very similar shape. Just cut that off. And pop a bit of glue onto this. And that just goes on like that. Okay, so now we have our Konig, our Ferdinand, and our Augustus vessels all ready to be painted up and take to the high seas. We still have a few more things to do. We've got our destroyers, which can be done as either Sigma or Token class, and we have two Arminus frigates, which are quite easy ones to assemble. Now, if we look on the next page, that's for the Sigma or Token. So we've got B and A written down on the assembler. So basically it's just a question of choosing the guns that you want to put on, and those pieces are, these ships are all one piece, so they're quite quick. So we'll go through one of them and then we'll call it a day there for the moment. Okay, so again, just snip off the pieces. I'm just going to quickly snip this parts off like that, and then I need the left and right Konig towers and steam stacks and gun batteries. I must say I'm very excited about the prospect of actually playing a game again. It's been so long since I've actually played a game. Now these actually go into the little recessed areas on the actual ship itself. They're quite visible, and they only go one way round, with the smokestack at the back. And of course I cut off the wrong piece. Oh well. We all make mistakes, said the Dalek climbing off the dustbin. Like this. Okay. So this is going to be both ships are the same configuration until we actually put the weapons on. It's the weapons that change the configuration of the vessel. So if we put on the cannon, it becomes a Sigma. If we put on the plasma cannon type thing, it becomes a totem, which is quite easy to understand, I suppose. Right. And again, this piece doesn't want to come off. That's alright. I'm just going to clean this piece up slightly because it's got a slight burr on it. There we go. Right. And this goes on the top of the steam stacks. And it's on top of the guns as well. So when it goes together like this. So it just fits, so the bottom of the Konig tower is sitting on top of the guns, and the steam stacks have got their little caps which are built into that part on them. And then we've got our weapons. So as I say, we get a choice of what weapons we want to put on. Do we want to put on the A or the B? So on this one, I'm thinking I might actually go for the A to give it a more traditional look. And now I've got to try and find where the weapons are. 43 and 37. It's 33. I think it's 33. Yep. So it takes both the weapons are the same. If you're doing it as a totem, which I am doing this as Sigma. So I cut the weapons off and just quickly drop a glue, and then I'm going to pop these in like this, and I'm going to give this so it's got a broadside going off rather than just facing forward. Like I say, you could actually magnetise all these so you can change the guns around, but no. Right, so I'm only going to assemble one of those because the assembly on those is exactly the same on the Konigs as on the totem. So I'm just going to assemble one, and then finally we've got the Arminus frigates, which are quite simple to assemble because they're more or less built. Right, if I can find where they are on the sprue. Right, and again, these have got a left and right assembly for the smokestacks and the gun batteries in them. And once you've assembled all your ships, you will find that you'll have a couple of things left over. There are sprues, such as things like this train here. They're used on different kits. And also there's a deck piece here with a spotter plane on the back of it. They're used on different vessels. So if you find that you've got things left over, please don't be worried, because they are for other vessels. Right, so let's see. So we have the gun turrets. 1342. That's that one. And then we have, that's it. Okay, so would help if I actually find where I put the ship. I just cut the ship off and put it down. I didn't realise where I put it. There we go. Right, so this is the last one that I'm going to assemble, because it's just basically repeating myself if I assemble the others in the same way. I'll do those off camera before we start painting, which will be the next part of the video. So what I may do, because at the moment we're on about 45 minutes, is cut this into two parts. So the first part will be assembling the fleet, and the second part will be actually painting. So again, we've got our left and right, or port and starboard, if you want to get technical. And these pieces just slip into place like that. And then on top of that goes the Konig tower, where it just fits on the back. And again, as you see, there's a little recesses on the back that go onto the nipples that are on top of the smokestack, like that. And finally, we put on our gun, which decided that it wanted to go for a little walk, and that's our final piece. Now, I've actually put the wrong gun on there, but I'm not really too fussed about that. I'm just going to see if I've got a spare one on here, which I should have. Because the gun that I've put on there is the coil rifle gun type thing. Ah, there it is. Right. So I'll also put this one on instead. That way it's correct for that class of vessel. Right. Because I don't want to give it a gun that it doesn't actually, it's not actually equipped with in the data packs. Okay, so excuse me. That's our fleet more or less assembled. We've still got another two of these to make, and another one of those. Sorry, another one of those to make, and another one of those to make. But finally, we have our SRS tokens, which are our spotters and our recon planes. So these are these big round circular things. Now you don't need to do this, because you can just cut them out and paint them up and use them as they are. But what Warcradle do as part of the kit, they give you some of the bases to actually mount these on. And we'll get a better view now of what our fleet box will look like when it's almost completely finished. So we get two of these lipped bases in the bag. These are great. Warcradle's bases have always been, they set the figures apart from other companies. So it's just a question of getting the base, getting some glue, putting a generous helping of glue on this because it's quite a large piece, and then just getting the piece and slotting it into the base, and that's that. That's one of our SRS tokens, and then we have that's a special SRS token, I think, and then we have the other one here, which I'm just going to put the glue in. Just realised that they're actually lit, so I'm going to put the glue around the edge so it doesn't fall out, and then just pop that in like that. Okay, so there we have it, folks. That's our first part of our fleet video assembly done. The next video I'm going to actually take a look at painting them and hopefully basing them as well, and we can then go from there. Hopefully Roland should have gotten his Commonwealth fleet painted and constructed by the time this video goes out, and then we can do our first battle report. So thanks for tuning in. My many thanks go to Free and Stuart at Warcradle and Wayland Games for all their support with this video. It'd be totally lost without those guys. And if you haven't picked up Dystopian Wars, or if you haven't picked up the Konig Battlefleet, I'll leave a link in the description down here somewhere of where you can pick it up from, and it's also going to be in the end title card as well. So once again, I've been Mark. Thank you for tuning in. There goes my iPad. Thank you for tuning in. No matter where you're in the world, please stay safe, look after yourself, and happy gaming.